The Dead Pair podcast is energized by KL Ammo, Gamebore US.
Paul?
Welcome to the Dead Pair podcast, coming in hot with everything you want to hear about sporting clays.
Guy Fieri.
How are you, gentlemen? Thanks for having me.
Anthony Matarese Jr., how you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty well.
Welcome back, David Radulovich.
That's a net positive 50 minutes. Brad Kidd.
Cory Kruse. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Now I feel awkward.
With your hosts, Jason Rambo
One more Red Bull for you.
and Sean Alley.
Woo, yeah!
Christmas.
Let's do it!
Often imitated but never duplicated. It's the Dead Pair podcast. And now, it's showtime.
We're back.
We are.
What's up, Mr. Largen in charge?
I don't know. I'm hating all this cold weather we're getting now.
Yeah, I hear you, man. Well, hey, listen, this cold weather is a good opportunity to set some goals.
It sure is.
Welcome, everyone, to the Path Part 2, goal setting.
Yes, very important.
Yes, it is. If you haven't listened to Part 1 of the Path, probably a lot of this isn't going to make a lot of sense. You need to go listen to it,
Yeah,
right?
go back and start over again, please.
Right. So, Sean, you and I have set goals in the past for sporting clays, and we learned a lot in doing so.
Mm-hmm.
You and I both have experiences in other sports with setting goals.
Right.
And a lot of that applies to sporting clays, but sporting clays kind of has a little bit of a twist to it. So we're going to dive into some of that here. We have a soundbite from Mr. Cory Kruse. We're going to be playing here in a little bit. But in the meantime, Sean, let's discuss what did we fail at with our goals when we set them for sporting clays.
Oh, boy. Where do we start? I guess more importantly, the goals that you set are probably relative to how much you want to put into it. Let's start with that first, right?
Right.
I mean, if you're trying to be one of the best in the sport, then like David said previously, you got to be one of those guys willing to give up a lot of extraneous activities
Right.
so that you can focus on being a better shooter.
Yeah.
For most of us, though, I mean, we might have we probably have a job. We may be married, may have family, have kids. They have their activities. You have, all the stuff that can be a distraction. So that can come into play against your goals because depending on how you prioritize it,
Right.
that's where you're going to be able to focus on.
I think, and I was going to get to this here in a little bit, but I'll go ahead and bring it up now. Anthony Matarese said in his book, and I quote, "It's important to match your expectations to your ability and experience." And I think the expectations weren't aligned with our goals.
Right.
It's real easy to come in and say, well, I want to win the state championship in my class this year.
Mm-hmm.
When the reality of it is you may be in, A, B, C, D, whatever class, but your experience level and your ability and your skill level is not where you need to be in order to be at, state championship winning level for your class.
Right.
So it's easy to set a high goal and then you don't even come close to it. So one of the things that I did in other sports when I set goals was to get something that was attainable and then set a little bit further goal. And we're bouncing all over the place here with my notes, but let's back up a minute. So going back to why we failed, money, was it time? Was it bit off more than we can chew? Did we set the goals too high? What do you think some of the failures were? I mean, I know you alluded to some of them, but specifically speaking, do you think money was like, wow, we had no idea what it took to get there? What was some of those financial reasons that maybe we came up short?
Okay, so financially, I think that, and again, it depends on the level of experience of the shooter we're talking about. Somebody that's just getting into the sport, somebody that's been in the sport for several years, or somebody that's been, around the block. They're going to tournaments all the time and traveling the country and chasing the tournament circuit. So, for a new shooter, you might not know what's going to take to get you to the next level or to the next class or whatever, right? So it's really hard to set a reasonable goal if you don't know what you're going to have to go through. Where me and you, I think, messed up were, I think originally we started chasing punches and we were more focused about moving up in the class versus becoming better shooters
Right.
So I think that's kind of a big misconception. We thought, well, hey, if we're going to go from E class to D class and then get from D class to C class and so on, well, we're going to become better shooters. And you are for the most part.
Right.
But I guess if I had a time machine I could go back and do it all over again, I would have focused on learning the fundamentals earlier, getting, my swing, my stance, hold point, break point, having all of that figured out earlier on in my game and not later on, which is when I actually did start working on all that stuff, when I was actually probably a C class, maybe going into B class shooter, when I really started working on that.
Yeah, so let's break it down this way, if you will. In the path part 1, and again, this is the last time I'll say this. If you haven't heard it, you need to go back and listen to it, or you're going to be clueless listening to this. Let's start with a category 1 shooter.
Okay.
Category 1 shooter, you may think, well, why do I need to set a goal, right? Maybe it's that you just want to shoot a little bit better than your buddies.
Right.
Maybe you want to bust more ducks on opening day, or you want to be king of the dove field, or whatever. So having those goals of beating your buddies or being a better shot in general, that may be to what adds to your experience in sporting clays, and it makes it even more enjoyable. So setting a goal, even if you come up short, you're going to be a better shooter for it because you've applied yourself to try and reach that goal.
Exactly.
Right? Okay, so category 2, again, this is dabbling into tournaments, so maybe now the goal is to, you hear it all the time, I just want to shoot better. Okay, well, define shoot better.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean 5 more targets than you got the last tournament? Does that mean, you got to really break it down. You really have to be specific, and this is where goals are like snowflakes. They're all unique to each individual, right? No two are the same. Just like a pre-shot routine, there is no cut dry path to a pre-shot routine. Everybody's is different. You watch a video of Joe Finizzi and you go out there and do exactly what he's doing, that does you no good whatsoever. It's unique to him because it's what he's found that works for him.
Right.
So on your goals, you need to set a specific goal for you. Now, I will steal something from Mr. Ben Huswade himself. I watched a video on him and he said you should set 3 goals. Goal that is obtainable, 2, a slightly above obtainable goal, and 3, an unattainable goal. So credit to Ben Huswade for that. But I understand what he's getting at. So if you set the first one an obtainable goal, let's say it's to raise your shooting average from 72% to 75%. That's not too unobtainable.
Right. That's realistic.
That's realistic. And you can do that. With some hard work, you can make that happen. The slightly unobtainable, okay, so if you're a B-class shooter and you want to win state championship this year, but you haven't really put in the work, that's going to be
slightly unobtainable.
Right. And an obviously unobtainable goal would be HOA your state.
Right.
Okay, so these are just examples. But by having those 3 goals, number 1, you're going to hit something that's obtainable. That makes you want to strive for that slightly unobtainable goal, right? Mm-hmm. So you come up short on your slightly unobtainable, but look how much you've progressed in doing so. The unobtainable goal, that is something that if you've already met your first and second, or you've met your first and came close on your second, now that third one doesn't look like it's so unobtainable.
Right.
So I think that's kind of a cool way of doing it. And what do you think, Sean? Why do you think that method would work or not work?
Well, I think what it does is when you set the obtainable goal and you actually achieve it, it gives you a sense of accomplishment. So you've actually made it. You've walked the walk, and now you can talk the talk because, hey, I did this. If my goal was I want to get out every weekend and shoot 100 birds for practice and do it religiously every week, if you can make that happen, you can check that off and say, I did it. Now, if a slightly above attainable goal would have been, I need to be able to shoot 250 rounds a week in practice, but work, family, whatever else really wouldn't allow that. Well, that's fine too. It was slightly unobtainable because you knew that there was going to be other distractions or whatever that was going to keep you from achieving that.
Right.
And then again, on the last thing, the unobtainable goal, obviously it's a pie in the sky wish or whatever you're trying to accomplish. It's good to have that thought in your head, like winning the lottery or whatever. And, it would be great if it happened, but you're probably realistic with yourself that it's not going to happen.
Right. Exactly.
That's probably the best way to explain it. I mean, and we all have, like you said, we all have different goals and different reasons that we set those goals. I mean, I remember earlier this year, I said, I want to be a better masterclass shooter. To do that, I've got to spend more time in the practice field, more time on the range, get some more coaching, yada, yada, yada. Well, as life has it, I was not able to achieve that goal because of other things going on.
Right.
And that was kind of a bummer for me because a lot of the stuff was unexpected. But it's never a bad thing you can hold on to it. I can try for this goal next year.
Right.
So it's not like you have to quit on it or give up on it. You just have to realize that, okay, this year, this is what I want to do. Hopefully I can get there. If I can't, there's always next year.
Right. So going back to the categories, we kind of touched on 1 and 2. Now, if you're in 3, or especially if you're in 4, or that elusive, category 5 that David Radulovich,
the mythical 5.
Yeah, the mythical 5 that David Radulovich gave us. I think this again goes back to what Anthony said about making sure that your expectations and your goals are aligned. In other words, setting the goal of winning the national championship next year may be a little out of reach if you're not a category 4 or high shooter.
Right.
You're right.
Right.
But, and this goes back to what you were just saying a minute ago, Sean, about your goals, about being a better masterclass shooter. You can't be bland when you're setting your goals.
Right.
You can't just say, I want to be a better masterclass. Okay, well, what is better? You have to define it. You have to write it down and define what that is to you.
And you're absolutely right. And I did have some more details in that. I didn't want to go too far into it because it was just me. But yeah, I had some guys that I respect on the local circuit here in Ohio that I look up to, and they're always at the top of the leaderboard. And I wanted to try to be competitive with those guys, or at least be, in the same circle as those guys. That was kind of my motivation. Now, I didn't quite get there this year, and obviously I've got next year to work on as well. But yeah, I mean, you got to write things down. You got to be specific. Absolutely.
Right. So let's talk about that. So when you write down each of your goals, under each one of them, you should be writing down 3 things, I believe. Okay. You guys take this for what you will. Is number 1, what sacrifices am I going to make to reach that goal? You talked about time, outside influences affecting you. Okay, so what are you going to sacrifice this coming year? When you write your goals down, what are you going to sacrifice to meet those goals?
Right. Is
it time on the range? Is it time away from family? Is it money? Is it, whatever, right? Number 2, this kind of refers to that. How much time and money is it going to take to meet that goal?
Right.
And number 3, and this is a big one, ask yourself, are my goals aligned with my ability and my skill level? So if your goal means that you need to raise your ability and your skill level, then that means more time with a coach. That means, working on the things that he wants you to do. So let's go back to the first one, is what sacrifices am I going to make to meet this goal? So if you want, Sean, I'll share this with you. I've got what we call the well room in our house, and it's a room between our bathroom and our laundry room, and it's got like the hot water heater, the water softener, the well bladder tank. We call it the well room. I walk through there every day. So I wrote my goals down on a piece of paper, and I taped them right there in the doorways, and every day I walk past them, I look at them. And those are not the goals that I have set. Those are the goals that I have in mind. And let me explain this if you don't mind my doing so. One of my goals I was looking at, and I said, okay, what am I going to have to sacrifice for that? Not what do I have to sacrifice? What am I going to sacrifice for that? And this may sound really silly to you, but one of the things that I've struggled with for a long time in my life is nicotine. So I went and looked up nicotine. Do you know one of the effects of, now we're not just talking about tobacco and cancer here, but did you know that one of the effects of nicotine is it messes with your central nervous system?
Okay.
Guess what else is hooked to your central nervous system?
I know, your eyeballs.
Your eyeballs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I need to sacrifice that. Not just for my own personal health, but for my shooting, right? I need to sacrifice that.
Right.
One of the other things I'm going to have to sacrifice is time. The most valuable thing in our lives is our family, right? So I'm going to sacrifice time away from my family to do this. So how valuable is that goal to me, and how much time am I willing to sacrifice away from my family to train?
Right.
Okay. What else am I going to have to sacrifice? Well, number 2 is how much time and money, right? So time is part of that sacrifice. Money is part of that sacrifice. We're very, very blessed that we have sponsors that help us out with some things. But let's face it, it's not free for us to go shoot.
No.
Not by any stretch of the imagination.
No, not at all.
I'm also very blessed and thankful that I have my own traps in my yard. But guess what? Targets aren't free. Shells aren't free. And time away from family is something that you can never put a price on.
That's right.
Okay, so these are things that I'm talking about that I'm going to have to sacrifice. And the third thing was, are my goals aligned with my ability and my skill? So what I'm getting at is I'm walking back through 2 and 3 times a day past this piece of paper, and I'm looking at those goals. And every time I look at them, I'm thinking about all the sacrifices. What am I going to have to do to reach those goals? Guess what? I wrote down 5 goals, 3 of which I've scratched out and rewritten. Now I'm analyzing them again.
Okay.
So this is something, we're in November right now. Well, actually, time everybody hears this is first week of December, but we're in December right now. The shooting season starts for us, Sean, down in February at the Jack Links Cup.
That's right.
During the Florida Swing. And then that's when you and I really start plowing into it, getting ready for March, April around here when the weather breaks. So I'm already diving into next year's goals. And I think this is important for anybody that wants to be a successful shooter to do so.
Yes, absolutely. I totally agree.
So what about you? Have you thought about this? I know your brain's kind of scattered with other things, but have you put a little bit of thought into it yet?
Yeah, again, I think where I'm at right now is based on all the stuff that got derailed this year through really no fault of my own and just kind of having to deal with the struggles of daily life, which I'm sure many of our listeners can relate to.
Yeah.
You don't know if somebody in your family is going to get sick, you're going to have to deal with that. You don't know if a financial burden is going to come up and take away from what you'd already set aside. But obviously, our priorities for most people are family first, and you have other responsibilities to take care of in front of shooting.
Right.
So that was for me this year very, very true and kind of hit home. So I'm going to basically kind of do a reset for next year and try to go back again and accomplish the goals that I'd set for this year and spend more time with a coach, spend more time at the practice range, and hopefully make that happen. Hopefully won't have so many curveballs thrown my way next year. I'll be happy when 2022 is over, just as a matter of fact. But anyways, I'm going to go back and revisit. I have to actually, I think what I need to do is write down some hard numbers. How many coaching sessions do I want to take next year? Who am I going to take those coaching sessions with? And then on top of that, force myself to say, okay, I can't realistically make it to the range every week, but maybe I can realistically make it to the range every other week, and start with that. Be realistic. I can't, between running my business, my family, and everything else that's been going on, I can't get out to the range every week. It's just an impossible thing that's never going to happen. And once tournament season starts, I'm shooting tournaments on the weekends and I'm not practicing on the weekends. Right. So tournaments become an expensive practice for me. So with that said, if I'm going to get better, if I'm going to meet the goals or meet the expectations that I set upon myself at the start of this year, that's what I'm going to have to do.
Right.
Period.
Yeah. Well, I hope you get a little bit more specific in your goals. I hope when you write those down, it's not just to be a better masterclass shooter. And I'm using you as an example. I'm sorry.
And that's fine. No, that's fine. That's totally fine.
But I hope that when you write those goals down, anybody listening to this, you're specific in your goals. To say I want to be a better masterclass shooter, well...
That's a broad brushstroke. I realize that.
Right. My definition of you being a better masterclass shooter might not be your definition.
Correct.
This, again, goes back to the snowflake thing, right? It's individual. So...
Yeah, am I looking to meet, like you said, am I looking to meet a certain percentage on my NSCA average?
Right.
Am I looking to say, okay, I'm going to be an average shooter. I'm always going to shoot between 85 and 92. Is that my goal? Am I going to be placing in the top 5 at every local tournament that I go to?
Right.
So yes, I understand. Being specific like that is definitely going to be helpful.
Right. So that's where, for me, part of my goals is going to be more time on mental training. For you, it may be just getting to the range more to be able to burn some more powder and put some more lead down range.
Right.
Where for me, it's both. It's mental, the mental side of it. Everybody knows I'm a basket case when it comes to competing. And it's no secret that my skills need work. Right. So that's more time with a coach. That's more time on the range. That's more time with mental training.
Mm-hmm.
those three things equal a lot of sacrifice, time away from family.
Right.
So again, this is all relatable, right? So let's start with number one. You're going to write it down. Okay. You're going to write down what your goals are. And then number two, I would analyze it just like I did. Walking past it every day, taking a look at it, thinking about it, sleeping on it, giving it some time.
Yeah, putting it somewhere prominent so where it keeps reminding you that you need to do that.
Right.
I think that's more than helpful.
Exactly. And then if you make a change to your goals, just like I did, allow time to analyze the change.
Yeah.
Don't just say, okay, like I said, I had 5 goals written down. I scratched 3 of them and rewrote them. Okay, don't just stick with that and go. Let's analyze that.
Yeah.
And set some more clarity here. And it doesn't matter if you're a category 1, 2, or 3, or 4 shooter. I don't think anybody can argue with this, that even if you're a category 1, think about your goals for a minute, man. Give it some thought. Because if you set goals and even if you come up a little bit short, you've improved yourself as a shooter and you've improved your experience in the sport.
Right.
Category 2, it may mean that you're starting to gain some punches. It may mean that you're going to start winning D class or so. Category 3 and 4, it's so important.
Yeah. And I think you can also look at it, like Anthony always says, as a lower class shooter, you've got low hanging fruit. There's easier things that you can fix.
Yeah.
As you progress upward and get better and better and better, there's fewer and fewer things that are easy fixes. They're small fixes, but sometimes they take a tremendous amount of effort to overcome.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely. Okay, so another thing I got written down here is when you make the decision and the goals are set, okay, there's no turning back. The commitment to the goal is more important than reaching the goal. And that may be the smartest thing I ever said because I read it from what somebody else wrote.
I was going to say that was a pretty good statement right there.
But no, the commitment, seriously, if you think about that, and I know that we're getting deep here, Sean Alley, the commitment to the goal is more important than reaching the goal.
Yes.
And again, this goes way back to the beginning of our conversation. Obtainable, slightly unobtainable, unobtainable.
Yep.
Right? So there's 3 different types of goals you should set. And of those 5 I wrote down, I had one of each one of those, but I had a couple mixed in there.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that the obtainable and the slightly unattainable, those are 2 of the 3 that I changed.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's something to think about.
Right. And I think the other thing you got to look at is, and we can't say this enough, it's different for every person. Because where, let's just say Joe Schmo over here, weekly, he goes out, hops on his Harley, he goes down to his favorite, bar, pit stop or whatever, and he does that as a tradition, okay? Mm-hmm. But if that's the only free time he has, is it important enough for him to give that up to, instead of doing that, go out to the range and practice?
Right.
Right? So you have to look at things. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to say that same guy, or another guy, if his issue was, hey, I got to take my little girl to dance class on Thursday nights. Well, obviously, if you're going to say, is my shooting more important than taking my little girl to dance class? I mean, that's a personal decision, right? But I'm going to go with taking my little girl to dance class. You know what I mean? It's just, That's what a good dad does. So there's all kinds of different factors that come into play. There's all kinds of different situations. And I think that everybody has to do a hard look. What can you sacrifice? What are you willing to give up? And there are some things that, okay, it's not that big of a deal to maybe not play cards with the guys on Friday night, or not go to your bar, hang out with your Harley, or go fishing with your buddy or whatever on Tuesday. You can give some of that up and trade that off to go to the range, to go practice, to go find a coach and take a lesson.
And that goes back to the sacrifices.
But obviously there are higher priority items in your life. If you got a family, if you got kids, you've got, bills and stuff that you have to pay. Those obviously take precedence over those easier things.
And I'm not advocating that you need to put your priorities aside just for shooting. That's not what I'm advocating for.
Right.
I'm just talking about, look, there's 3 ways to the top of anything. And that's 1, busting your butt, making sacrifices and making it happen. 2, it's given to you.
Right.
Okay. And 3 is you just randomly win it.
Right.
Think of finances, right? You can win the lottery, you can inherit the money, or you can bust your butt at work and earn it.
Right.
There's 3 ways of getting the money. And it's the same way with shooting. You know, you can bust your butt. Well, no, it's not the same way with shooting. The only way you're going to do it is to bust your butt and go do it.
Right.
Okay. Because unless you've got, oh no, we're not going to go there. But anyway, you know, I got something chicken scratch down here, and this is, you know, I don't know if it has any relevance or not, but motivational speeches. You know, if you're one of these people that just, you lack motivation, or you need some kind of a deep, rocky speech off of a movie or something that you need to watch it get up and watch it every morning.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, YouTube is full of this stuff.
Yep.
Better yet, give Don Grant a call.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if that's what you need. You know, I mean, listen, we're trying to provide you with tools you need to put in your tool bag to go get the job done.
Right.
Okay. We do not have the answers. We're just trying to give you the best information possible to put your goals together and go out and accomplish them. I just think it's important. And I think this whole episode was important of talking about goal setting, because so many people just go out and shoot.
Right.
And then, man, I want to get better. Well, what are you doing to get better?
Right.
You know? Well, you know, I've been practicing a little bit more. Okay, well, what's your goals? Well, I don't really have any goals. Well, then how in the world do you know what direction to head?
Right.
You know, goals are important. I don't care what category you're in. Goals are important.
Yep, you're absolutely right.
One of the things I have down here, Sean, as a coach, you know, and I think this is big, and we're gonna roll this right into talking to Corey.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna get him on here in just a second, but I think you should discuss your goals with your coach.
Oh, absolutely.
And they should be able to give you the technical tools you need for training that will develop the skills you need to help you reach your goals.
Yes.
And I can tell you right now, if your coach laughs at your goals, or they say there's no way, you need to find another coach. I don't care how good they are.
Right.
If they don't believe in you, or they tell you there's no way in hell you'll ever do that, you need to tell him, thank you very much, put your gun in the sleeve, and go home and find another coach.
Right.
I mean, I no discredit to any coaches out there, but if they're not supportive enough to try and help get you to where you want to be, then you need to find a person. You need to surround yourself with the right people to do that.
Yeah, and I think the other important thing about a coach is that it's one more level of motivation to where if you have a good coach, they're going to be checking in on you. Hey, did you do the lesson?
Yeah.
Did you work on this? How did you improve? How much time did you spend on that? How many targets have you shot? How many rounds have you shot?
Right.
Were you out last weekend working hard, or were you, at the bar hanging out drinking beer?
Well, a lot of that too depends on the personality of the coach. You know, I mean, I don't listen. I don't think you're going to see Wendell Cherry giving you a call on Tuesday to see if you've been out practicing.
Well, but
I guarantee if you went to Wendell Cherry and you said, hey, this is my goal for this year, he'd say, okay, let's take a look at you and see what we need to do to get you there.
yes.
I guarantee Wendell would say that. I think I know him well enough that he would say that.
Well, and also what I meant by that was, okay, so you decide on your coach, you're going to take several lessons over a course of a period of time. And again, like you said, you sit down with your coach, you tell them what your dreams or your goals are. They're going to help you get there. And if they care enough, they will follow up with you. So you have a lesson with this guy this week. He says, I'll see you in 3 weeks or whatever for your next lesson, or I'll see you whatever and for your next lesson. Hopefully he'll reach out to you in that time frame and say, hey, how's it coming? How many rounds have you put down the barrel? What's been going on? Tell me what's happening.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that way it holds you accountable because, oh, damn, my coach is following up with me. So did I do that? Did I not do that?
Yeah. No, I agree with that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Seriously, that is an extra level of motivation. I mean, by ourselves, let's face it, we can slide. We can take the easy route on certain days and stuff like that. But if you've got somebody that's holding you accountable to the goals you set, that's just an extra level of motivation to push you in the right direction to make sure you're getting things done.
Well, Bill Elliott did this with me. Chad Roberts still does it with me.
Yep.
How much have you shot this week?
Yeah.
What'd you work on this week? And that'll be, I'll tell you right now, that one will get you right there. What have you worked on this week? And when you can say, my gun's been in the safe since, the night shoot at Cardinal.
Yeah.
Oh boy. That's when you better just hold the phone back away from your head a little bit.
Right. Because they're going to say, well, how in the heck do you think you're going to get better?
Right. Exactly.
How do you think you're going to get any better at all if you're not putting in the time?
Yep.
You told me you wanted to go here and you want to be here, and this is what you needed to do. I'm telling you what you're doing, and you're not doing it.
Right.
That usually light a fire under your butt. You know what I mean?
Well, it's a shame because leading up to nationals, Chad was giving me all the tools I needed for training, and I was working hard. I really was. And then I just totally let everything else get in my head, and, everything with the Super Squad, everything with the podcast and sponsors and all that kind of stuff. And I totally let it get. I didn't compartmentalize at the shoot.
Yes.
So I took everything that I had done and threw it in a trash can and just called pull. So, basically, it's my own fault. You're laughing over here, but it's the truth.
I'm laughing because I know it's the truth. I know it's the truth. But that in and of itself, our situation's a little different than a lot of guys because we do go to these shoots, and because of what we do with the podcast, I think we have a little added distraction on our plate. And we've said it time and time again. It's not a bad thing necessarily, but being able to cope with it can sometimes be very challenging.
Right. Absolutely.
So if you can go to the shoot and have a clear head, that's awesome. But if you are thinking about work, if you're thinking about family, if you're thinking about other things that are keeping you from being focused, then yeah, that's something you definitely have to work on. That might be a goal to figure that out.
Well, hey, speaking of coaches, let's get Corey on the phone and see what he has to say about goal setting.
Cool.
All right, Corey. So a couple questions we have for you on goal setting is, when you are setting goals, what are some of the most important factors other than the outcome of the goal? And in other words, if a championship is the goal, do you look at the sacrifices it'll take to get there, or do you just make a decision on your goal and kind of run with it?
Man, it's kind of a double-sided coin sort of question. I think, the first thing just depends on which stage of life you're in, what season of life you're in. I know as a younger shooter, I had goals and nothing could stand in the way there, but I didn't have any other responsibilities, right? So, for some people who can afford the time, the money, the sacrifice that it takes to accomplish that certain goal, whatever it is, well, that's one thing. Then don't let anything stand in your way and just do everything that you can and in your will and in your power to accomplish it. But, the other side of that is that once you get older and you have more responsibilities, you kind of have to weigh out, what the goal and how realistic is it to accomplish it. What kind of toll is it going to take on your family? What kind of toll is it going to take on your finances? What kind of toll is it going to take on your time? Is it realistic? Can I do this given those sort of factors? And then, see if it's realistic, see if it's achievable, and, see what that kind of does for the fire and drive that you have. So you kind of have to weigh out all those different factors. And then, is the juice worth the squeeze? Well, if so, then yeah, absolutely go for it.
Gotcha. All right, Corey. So another question here. For a guy that's spent many, many years competing in the sport, what have you learned about what are the most important factors when you actually sit down and set a goal?
Well, like I was just saying, the most important factors when setting a goal, for me nowadays is what kind of toll is it going to take on my family, my job, the rest of real life, those are to me right now the most important factors. But secondary, what is the goal? Let's say if it's to win the World FITASC, that's something that that's a goal that I have. Where is it going to be? When is it going to be there? And what sort of preparation am I going to have to make, to do that? And what kind of practice? And I think something that goes overlooked, quite a bit nowadays is what sort of heart posture are you carrying to accomplish that goal? And so as you evaluate different factors, what is my heart in it or not? Or am I just making this goal because I need to make goals? If it's something that you just can't live without and you've got a fire burning inside of you to go and accomplish that, well, I think that's a really important factor. If it's not something like that, well, it might not be at the top of your list. But if you got a fire inside of you to accomplish that goal, well, chances are you are going to accomplish it because you're going to figure it out.
Okay. And then, as a follow-up on that, and I don't want to drag this out too long, But let's say, right now in your life, Corey, obviously you've got other demands on your time, family, business, work, finances, all that fun stuff. When you're making decisions to set your goals, do you realistically look at yourself and say, okay, I want to do this, 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 and this, but I know that this could become a factor, this could become a difficulty, this could take away from that goal. So do you wind up not setting that goal because you know that there could be other outside influences that would interrupt that? Or do you just say, nope, we're just going to try to do it the best we can, and whatever happens, happens?
Well, in my instance, just speaking for myself, it comes into being a family decision as we all set goals together. My wife is extremely supportive of my shooting, and, that's kind of been our lives. But now with the daughter, we just kind of factor in what our goals are. She knows, the goals that I've got, and, she's more than accommodating. And so, it's really just one of those deals. You got to kind of weigh it out and figure out, if it's attainable, and, whether it's in this season or the next season, of when you're going to really, plan that roadmap for accomplishing that certain goal. I guess it'd probably be the best way as I could explain it. It has to make all sorts of sense from so many different realms that, it's got to be attainable.
Okay.
As an example, look at Zach. He's been running the circuit hard for many, many years. And, I don't want to put words in his mouth or anything, but I would say that, a major championship is just another day at the office for him. I know he still gets the butterflies and the competitive edge, but, compared to me or to any other shooter that's not shooting a whole lot, when you get to a tournament, it's a different game whenever you're not shooting enough competition. So,
yeah.
The main question is for, how would you direct them? Well, first let's roadmap everything out, identify your weaknesses and your strengths, and let's figure out a way to get there, and just kind of capitalize on your strengths and improve on your weaknesses enough to make that goal attainable.
Well, I'm paraphrasing here. I don't remember his exact words, but in lieu of what you said about Zach, I think he made the comment that he competed at the Nationals for 20 plus years before he finally won a championship. So,
yep.
His goal was always to win the championship, but it took him that long to meet his goal. So, it's important to not ever give up on your goals, I guess. Analyzing what they set as a goal, is it obtainable this year or next year or the following year? Am I right in asking or saying that?
Yeah. I totally agree. It just depends on whether you have a time stamp on your goal. Is it for, I want to do it this season, or I just want to do it, with an open end date. Those are usually more attainable, on an open end, so you have more than one chance at it. And sometimes, I think it's good to set the date for now, just, you never know what the future might hold, right? Seasons change and, life changes. So, you want to be efficient, in accomplishing your goals. So, but if it doesn't work out, well, that's what, every year, kind of reevaluate, replan, and just, I guess some of the best advice I could possibly give, it's all about heart posture, man. If your heart's in it and it's burning hard, then, you're going to do good. But that second that you kind of get, sidelined with other things, well, it can take a log out of that fire and put it in something else. You're always going to be driven. You should be anyway, but it just depends on what you're driven for. And if it's for accomplishing that goal and that's at the top of your list, well, your odds are, improving drastically.
Right.
That's well said, Corey.
Awesome. Thank you, Corey. Appreciate it, sir.
Heck yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure to have Corey on.
Absolutely.
I really admire and respect that guy.
What an outstanding individual.
He's a good man.
Hey, listen, we got sponsor segments to get to. Y'all better enjoy these because they're not coming back next year. So sit tight and we'll be right back.
All right. Joining us on the phone right now for this OtoPro segment is Richard Marks. Richard, how you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. How you guys doing?
We're doing awesome, Richard. Tell everybody where you're from.
I am from Victoria, Texas.
So how did you get started into sporting clays, Richard?
I've been shooting since I was young, but never did shoot competition. I never shot clay targets. And a friend of mine, he has what's called Coastal Sporting Clays. It's a mobile sporting clay business. and I actually worked with him. And one day he invited me out to do a little bit sporting clays, and I was 52 years old when that happened. So I'm 56 now. So I really wish I started sooner.
Do you shoot a lot of registered tournaments?
I shoot nationals every year. I shot the World English this year. I try to get to San Antonio on their monthly registered shoots.
Okay.
Mostly around here, we do a lot of skeet and trap at a local club, but they don't have sporting clays. They have a little 5-stand set up, but not sporting clays.
Gotcha.
Well, Richard, obviously with you shooting, obviously you've figured out that protecting your hearing is important. What made you decide to go with OtoPro ears?
Well, I'd always been interested in the electronic, and, I'm going to pump your tires up a little bit because it was your podcast that I listened to that got me interested in that company.
Cool.
Force.
Mm-hmm.
And I had an extra set made for shooting. The problem with those is you can't hear anything else except your own heartbeat. And,
right.
And the first station of nationals, my heart's about to blow up anyway, and it's pounding in my head. And this year I got these right before the World English. They were awesome. I mean, I loved them from the very minute that I put them in because I can hear things around me. I don't have to pull one earplug out to talk to somebody to hear what they're saying. And it's very well worth the money, in my opinion, just for the comfort of them and not having that hassle and having to ask somebody to re-say what they said while I pull an earplug out, and then somebody shoots and then it's right there in your ear. I love them. They're awesome.
So what model do you have of the OtoPro?
I have the Bluetooth model. Was that the Phantom?
Yeah, the Phantom
right.
model.
And the Phantoms, yeah.
So, okay, we all know that they got a bunch of crazy features on them. What's your favorite?
Yeah.
What's your favorite feature if you had to pick one?
Well, the fact that I can hear people talking while other people are shooting, and it's deadening the shot. And occasionally you might miss a word, but that's it. And it's protecting your ears the whole time, but you don't miss so much going on around you. You can hear the trap. If you're close enough, you can hear the trap go off. If you're the kind of guy that likes to hear the trap. This year, the first time I used them, a few trappers had to tell me to speak up, because with my old earplugs, I would speak up because I can't hear myself. But with these, I can hear myself very well. So I didn't call pull as loud.
Right.
But I like the feature that you can stream music and you can listen to music, or, as of right now, they're in my ears and I'm talking to y'all, in my house.
Oh, nice.
So that they're awesome. I mean, I can use them at work if I want to, for multiple reasons. So I don't hear people in cubicles next to me hear their conversations, or if I wanted to hear them, I could, because they're like the bionic ears. You can hear things that I didn't even know. Like in my own house, I can put them in and hear my ceiling fan running. I didn't even realize that it was run.
Never noticed
cool.
it before, huh?
No.
Well, take us through the steps. So obviously, what did you do? Did you call? Did you email? How did you reach out to Grace? And then what was the process after you decided to move forward with getting a set of ears from OtoPro?
That was probably the smoothest purchase that I've ever had, and I was really nervous about doing it because I knew I had to get some impressions made. And anyway, I sent an email the next day. Grace responded, and then Jennifer Stewart stepped in, and then I dealt with Jennifer mostly from there on out. I think Grace got in contact with the audiologist here in town. Within a day, they had already contacted an audiologist, made sure that they could provide the moldings that Grace needed, because she's very particular about making sure that she gets a good set of moldings. And I called them that day, had an appointment the next day. So 3 days after the first email, I already had an appointment to have my ear molds made. Got the ear molds made, put them in a box, shipped them off. Of course, the whole time Jennifer is emailing me back and forth, letting me know what's going on and the status. And they're just awesome people to work with. I can't say enough about both of them. But so anyway, long story short, I said, am I going to be able to have them for the World English, which is I wasn't registered until April the 20th. And Jennifer said, it's my mission to make you have them in your hand by April the 19th.
Wow.
Long story short, I had them in my hand by April the 8th.
Oh my goodness. That's cool.
So, yeah, that was not expected. And I told her in the email, it's not a do or die thing. I'll use my old ones until I get them. And she said, oh no, you're going to have them. I'm going to make sure you get them. And she did. And I used them for 3 or 4 days at the World English, which was a very windy event, to say the least. And, they did well with the wind, and I was a little concerned with that. But I think when I got home, I checked them, put them on the charger, and they were at 90%.
Wow. Very cool.
It was, they're awesome. They've been not on the charger. They've been in my shooting bag since my last registered shoot, and I just open them up, put them in. They're 100% still. So the batteries don't drain down. They don't run down. They're really fantastic. I love them.
Very cool. So the main point here is the customer service you receive at OtoPro. I mean, whether it's through Dr. Grace or her staff, I mean, they're there to help you all the way through.
I actually got in a little bit of trouble because after I got them, I said, okay, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure doing business with you. I'm going to go shoot. And she texted me back. She said, whoa. You are not through with us. You are part of the OtoPro family now. We're here for anything you need. We will be in touch. And that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
That's
They're good
great.
people.
Yeah.
So if you had any of your associates or shooting buddies out there, would you have any reservations recommending the OtoPros to them?
I've already done that multiple times. And, of course, a few people are like, well, I don't know. They're just earplugs, and they don't understand until you actually try it or hear somebody tell you how good they are. But
that's right.
I know people don't want to spend the money, but holy cow, sporting clays is not a cheap game to begin with. So the money that I spend on these, it's for the rest of my life, basically. Right. It's way cheaper than shotgun shells in the long run. I can say that.
And it's an investment in keeping your ears healthy too. I mean, let's face it.
Oh, and not only that, I'm a big archery bow hunter, and this will be my first season to use them. But I have gone out in the woods with them, and it's a little different. I mean, you have to turn them way down because you can hear everything: squirrels, armadillos, birds, and they sound like they're in your lap.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited about trying them for that as well.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, Richard, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to talk to us. We really appreciate it. And I'm sure that Grace and Jennifer both will be very pleased about the nice words you had to say for them. And again, hopefully we'll see you out there on the tournament course soon. And we wish you the very best of luck on the rest of your 2022 season.
Hey, I'm glad I could help. And y'all take care.
All right,
too,
Richard.
sir.
Take care, sir. Thank you.
Right. Uh-huh.
All right. Bye-bye.
Well, Sean, what do you think about what Corey had to say?
Well, he's a guy that's been around. I've said it before. He's experienced a lot of things. He's gone through a lot of things. He's definitely got a great insight on the sport. I mean, for as many years as he's competed, he's just as valid as any of the big name shooters. And again, I think he's just a great dude overall.
Well, did you notice the reoccurring theme of everything he said goes back to the sacrifices you're willing to make in order to meet your goals? That's so important. The whole theme of this podcast, the Path Part 2, is goal setting. And again, we're going back to those sacrifices.
Yeah, and I think he paints it in a real light. I mean, it's like he said, when he was younger, it was a lot easier for him to stay focused because he didn't have so many outside distractions. Nowadays, he's married. He's got a family, wife,
right,
business, job, finances, all that stuff. And a lot of that stuff, unfortunately, takes precedence over shooting at times, and it's a hard thing to juggle. I think it's a hard thing to balance, and I think that applies to everybody. Most of us are are 9 to 5 blue collar type people. We go to work every week, and we want to do this as much as we possibly can. But the reality of it is we have things pulling us in other directions. So when you are setting goals, it's important to realize, hey, set the goals that you want to set, but just realize, if you do have a family, if you do have kids, you do have a job, that stuff obviously comes first for most people.
Sure. In
most instances, and it should. But there are times when, like Corey said, you find a way to make time if it's important to you. What did he say? His heart, what was his?
Yeah, that's big right there. If your heart's in it, you'll find a way to make those sacrifices to meet your goals.
Exactly.
And I think that's very, very key here. I mean, look, if your heart, okay, look, everybody wants to win the lottery, right?
Sure.
Okay, and everybody wants to be a champion. Everybody wants to win. But if your heart is not, if your passion and your drive is not there, then when you set your goals, you need to be realistic and you need to look in the mirror and think about that.
Yeah, the people that have reached the tippy top of the sport or any profession or whatever you want to call it, they've had to do more things than your average person has, and they've had to overcome more things and sacrifice more things to get there. Because let's face it, if it was easy, everybody could do it.
Right.
But it's not.
That's right.
So it's only the people that are exceptional in the fact that they are able to make those kind of commitments and make those kind of sacrifices.
So
those are the ones that are going to wind up on top.
Right. Exactly. That's well said. So if you're a guy that your heart's in it and you're there and you're passionate, it's like, man, how do I create more time? But you know what? Maybe that's figuring out a way to hit the range on the way home from work.
Mm-hmm.
Tell the wife, hey, honey, I'm going to be home an hour late.
Yeah.
Or whatever that sacrifice is, whatever the passion is, if it's, this may sound silly to you, Sean, I've been working out to try and improve my health.
Right.
Not just for shooting, but look, my goals for working out are different than they were 20 years ago when I was single. 20 years ago when I was single, it was to look and feel and have as much confidence as I can for whatever. Now it's, I want to see my little girl grow up.
Right.
Part 2 of that is I want to be in better health. I want to feel better. Part 3 is shooting.
Sure.
Okay. So what am I doing? What am I sacrificing? I'm getting up early and I'm going to the gym before work.
Right.
You know what I mean? So again, I've made a sacrifice. I'm getting out of bed at 4:30 a.m. instead of 6:30 a.m.
It's all your priorities, man.
Exactly.
All your priorities.
The one last thing I want to add to this before we wrap up this goal setting is, outside of your coach, your goals are personal. And the more you share your goals with others, the more open you're going to be to criticism. Right? Because look, if you go broadcasting your goals to everybody, somebody's going to pick on something.
Right.
Right? It's okay to share your goals with your spouse because that may be necessary to explain, financial reasons or time spent away from home. Like I said, hey, honey, I'm going to come home an hour late because I'm going to stop and practice for a little bit. Or maybe you need to share your goals with your spouse as a cheerleader. If you're that type of personality where you need her support or his support, excuse me, ladies, didn't mean to exclude you. That may be important, but your goals are personal. I think you need to keep them that way.
Yeah.
I think you need to keep your goals to yourself. Keep it in your mind. The best way to shut up a hater is to beat them.
Yeah. And also, a kind reminder, don't be too hard on yourself.
That's right.
We're all only human. We'll do as much as we possibly can. If you can find a way to squeeze a little bit more out of the things that you're trying to get, then great. That's what this is all about. But in the end, we're all human beings, and we're full of all kinds of flaws. So take it in stride, one step at a time, and hopefully you'll get to where you want to be.
I think that goes back to what I said earlier. The commitment to the goal is more important than the goal.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
You're going to improve yourself as a shooter and as a human being for fighting for your goals and being passionate about your goals, no matter how big or how small your goals are. If you're a category 1 shooter, your goals are probably pretty small, but that's okay.
Yep.
It's going to improve you as a shooter and as a person, and you're going to enjoy the whole experience is going to be that much more enjoyable for you. If you're a category 4 and your goal is to win the national championship and you come up short by 5 targets, 5 targets just puts you within the top 10
Yep.
in the nation.
It's still an accomplishment.
Still an accomplishment. So don't ever give up on your goals. Be realistic about it. Go back and listen to this again if you need to. I hope we've given you something that you can use and plan to move forward. But hey, look, until next time, Sean Alley, we tell everybody every week.
Take somebody shooting, get them out there with a gun in their hand, show them how much fun this sport is. Get out there, take them to a tournament, take them to a charity event. Bring a smile to your face. I mean, this sport is about having fun, period.
Absolutely. And until next week.
Can't wait to see you all back here on the Dead Pair Podcast.
We'll see you next time on the Dead Pair Podcast.
The Dead Pair Podcast is energized by KL Ammo Game Bore US. The Dead Pair theme song was written, arranged, and produced by Toby Tomplay. Special thanks to the following sponsors: Bear Pelt, Negrini, Rhino, OtoPro, Dawn Grant, Atlas Trap Company, RE Ranger, Woolly Shooting, Folded Wing Apparel Company, and White Flyer Targets.